Welcome back to Two Keto Dudes. This is Carl Franklin from Connecticut in the United States. And in February 2016, I put myself on a ketogenic diet to take control of my metabolism. In just 2.5 months, I managed to reverse all my markers of type 2 diabetes with diet alone. As of now, I'm 80 pounds lighter with no signs of diabetes or heart disease.
Hi, I'm Richard Morris in Canberra, Australia. I've been on a ketogenic diet since April of 2014. When I started, I was very sick with complications from type 2 diabetes. Within 6 months of starting a ketogenic diet, all of my biomarkers of disease had disappeared. I've lost about 100 pounds. I've completely turned my health around.
And this show is a document of my progress through ketosis and Richard's experience thriving for years in ketosis.
Yep.
And hopefully that might help a few people who are curious about this kind of dietary hacking.
Yeah, we're not doctors. We don't want to give anyone any medical advice, but we are keen to share our own experiences. We're actually both software developers, so we're not afraid of a little technical detail, are we, Carl?
No.
We've done some research into our own deranged metabolisms and the science behind that. We hope to share some of that research. Where possible, we intend to put links in the show notes to cite research supporting any claims that we make.
And you'll probably work out pretty quickly that we're both foodies.
Oh, yeah.
We love to cook and we love to eat.
We do.
In every episode, we both share a keto recipe that cannot be ignored.
It cannot.
Today's no different. And because we're going to start podcast number 92, Thanksgiving, with Brenda and Kevin. So, Richard, do we have any apologies or corrections from last week's show?
Last week was Tim Noakes. We're not worthy. We're not worthy. I am not going to apologize for Tim Noakes.
Yeah, what a great episode. And Professor Noakes, he's the guy. I mean, he inspired you, and you inspired me, and that whole thing just, he was one of the first people to really tell people, hey, this is worth looking into.
He sure was.
Yeah.
And what a privilege to talk to him.
Absolutely. So let's revisit what a ketogenic diet is.
Sure. A ketogenic diet is 20 grams or less of carbohydrates a day. Moderate amount of protein. We have between 1 and 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight. All of your energy is going to come from fat. It'll be either fat on your body or fat on your plate.
Fat.
Fat.
Yep,
we should do fat Gregorian chants.
Oh, I love it. Let's do that. We'll make a CD.
Next episode.
You'll be able to download it on iTunes. How was your week, buddy?
It was good. I went to Sydney to go to a lecture by Dr. David Ludwig, and it was a lecture on whether obesity comes before overeating. And it was interesting. I mean, it probably wasn't anything controversial to people who listen to this podcast, because it was all the stuff that we all know about. You know, a low carbohydrate diet being probably the best approach,
right? First
approach at least for diabetes, and also the human requirement for carbohydrates in their diet is apparently zero. All of these things, the greatest hits from the low carb world, but this was an audience of dietitians, nutritionists, and students, and so that was interesting because it was quite challenging for them. But I saw a lot of people nodding their head.
Wow.
I sense a sea change in the field of nutrition. So one interesting thing, I was going to ask him when they came to Q&A what his opinion was of the fact that Diabetes Australia suggests that diabetics eat 300 grams of carbohydrates a day.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Rory Robertson, well known as at Oz Paradox, got up and asked my question before I could get to it.
Oh.
And he almost had to get escorted out by security because he was rather strident. So that was interesting. Yes. So,
wow.
but you know, he had a good point. You know, that he was making the point that the diet that Diabetes Australia has been suggesting for diabetics is actually making them sicker. And the interesting thing was that David Ludwig basically defanged him by saying, you and I probably agree on that.
I was going to say that it wasn't controversial to David Ludwig, I'm sure.
No, but it was controversial to the host of the event, Jenny Brand Miller, and also probably to a lot of people in the audience. So, it was certainly an interesting event. So, and I recorded a podcast with Dr. Ludwig, and also some content for Jason Funk's show. So.
Yes, which, by the way, the Obesity Code podcast is just doing great.
Yeah.
And if you haven't heard it already, go listen to it. Just search for Obesity Code wherever you get your podcasts. It's really, really good.
Yeah, and thank you to our Patreons who have sponsored us to be able to do these extra podcasts.
Absolutely.
So how was your week, Carl?
Oh, my week was great. I did some work on the other side of my brain in the software development world, although it all has to do with podcasting. It's an interesting thing. For those who don't really know about what's going on in the software world, I'll just give you this backdrop that frames what we've been working on lately. In about 2012, Microsoft, the corporation, switched from being all about selling Windows with their programming techniques, tools, and approaches to being open source and supporting other platforms other than Windows, because now for them, it's all about the cloud. Yeah. And cloud means we're going to have people writing JavaScript. We're going to have people running on Linux, which is another operating system. We're going to have, people with Macs and iPhones and Android devices, and we have to embrace all these people. So they changed. One of the things that we're doing, and I say we, Richard Campbell and I, is we're inviting all of these podcasters from other non-Microsoft communities, specifically JavaScript, Linux, iOS, which is, Apple, and Android, to come to Microsoft conferences and interview Microsoft people.
Right.
Program managers and people that, make big decisions for their own communities. So it's really kind of like, talk about a sea change in technology. This is a big deal.
Yeah.
And so Richard Campbell and I from .NET Rocks, we went there for the week and coordinated about 30, 40 recordings with other Microsoft people. So the reason I brought that up is because some of these podcasters who now I've met over the last 3 or 4 years, we've been doing this for 3 or 4 or 5 years. Now they're beginning to listen to Keto Dudes and taking a ketogenic approach to their metabolic issues.
Wow.
And they're coming out of the woodwork, man. And we see this pattern. And I say we, Richard Morris and I, see this pattern all the time in the people in our community, which is, I thought it was crazy. Mm-hmm. I tried it. I cut out carbs. I increased my fat. It worked. I lost 20 or 30 pounds in a few weeks.
Yep.
I went to my doctor. My doctor had never seen it before. Couldn't believe it. Didn't offer any help and said,
just keep doing whatever it is you're doing.
Well, yeah, they'll either say, keep doing it, or they'll say, you're never going to stick to that, and find some other problem with it, like cholesterol or whatever, that they can't get behind it. But the reason these doctors can't get behind it is because they can't do anything. They're not involved in it.
Sure.
They can't offer any medicine. All they can do is take them off medicine, and they're afraid to do that, right?
Yeah.
And so then the final thing in this progression, this pattern that we see, is that the people who have lost weight and reverse diabetes get mad.
Yeah.
They get angry. They're like, why didn't you tell me about this? Why didn't you say that I could have gotten off all these medications? Why did you continue to tell me to eat carbs and take medicine?
Sure.
And so now what you have out here is thousands and thousands, I would say maybe even hundreds of thousands of people all around the world who have cured themselves of diabetes and are angry.
Yeah. Irate.
Irate. Yeah. I mean,
That's the animating force behind us, behind the Ketogenic Forum, behind a lot of our friends on Facebook and on social media pushing this ketogenic message. It's not a dogma.
Right.
We're not trying to prove that we're right. We're not trying to shore up our own beliefs by converting other people to our way of looking at things. What we're trying to do is we're trying to pass on the information that we wished somebody had passed on to us earlier.
Exactly. That's what it comes down to. So, just congratulations to everybody out there who is doing what we're doing and following in our footsteps. There are too many of you to high five, but here's your virtual high five. Well done.
High five.
Yep. Well, this is the point in the show where we give away a 2 Keto Dudes coffee mug with our mugs on it.
We do.
And a phrase that you probably have heard before, keep calm and keto on.
Mm-hmm.
And today's winner is Priscilla Ruiz.
Congratulations, Priscilla.
And Priscilla won that mug just by being a member of the 2 Keto Dudes fan club, which is easy to sign up for. Go to fanclub.2keto.com, answer a few silly questions, and you'll be automatically eligible to win every show something from the 2 Keto Dudes.
Nice. And if you don't want to wait to win a mug, you can always buy one at gear.2keto.com and pick yourself up a t-shirt while you're at it. Right.
Okay, you know what time it is now. Ready?
It's time for... What you got, Carl?
All right. Well, this is one from the Ketogenic Forums. And if you don't know what that is, it's at forum.2keto.com. It is a free forum. I think there's over 10,000 people in there now, but about that anyway.
It's actually paid for by our Patreons.
Absolutely. And this is from Kathy, and it's entitled Post-Holiday, Post-Vacation Fasting. And she says, I had been regularly doing 3 to 4 day fasts for about 6 months last year. It's how I lose weight. Mm-hmm. But I slowed down during the holidays, and then I didn't do one while on vacation. I stayed keto, of course, but still gained about 3 pounds. Not bad considering how much eating out I did. I have since lost those 3 pounds and started an extended fast about 20 hours ago. I plan on extending this fast at least until Friday. Okay, so no problem, right? Just get back on the horse. Mm-hmm. But I just don't really feel like fasting. I feel like I have to go back to square one and just work my way through it. I really want to eat. Not hungry, just want to eat. So the question is, will this get better? Mm-hmm. I want and need to fast to continue losing weight and to prevent illness through autophagy. I want it to be easier to take a few weeks off without having to go back through this feeling that I don't like this. What are some strategies from you, regular fasters? I think it might be all psychological at this point, and I just need to talk to myself a little bit.
Well, one of the things that Megan says is change it up, right?
She does, yeah. And we also know that there's a sort of compounding effect, right? That, the first day of a fast can be, pretty disruptive. The second day gets a little bit disruptive, but it kind of gets easier because you feel much better. And then by the third day, you're really feeling strong. Yeah. But I really do empathize with Kathy because this is sort of where I've been for the longest time. I just love eating and I love cooking and I love eating good food. And fasting is clearly the next step, for me, longer fasts, more frequent fasts.
Sure. It's hard to get into that.
Yeah. And when I've been successful at fasting, I've just jumped in, done the, feeling weird for a day or two or 3. And after that, it just feels like I could go forever. And it becomes just a little game that you play with yourself. How long can you go? How long should you go? Yeah. But Kathy knows this, and everybody who fasts knows this. The more you do it, the easier it gets. Yep. So
that's very true.
Do you have any recommendations? You like to go for a bike ride.
I do. Yeah, I like to do a little bit of exercise fasted. If I get hungry, I do a little bit of exercise and I don't feel hungry after it. Yeah. If I'm not hungry and I eat something, then all of a sudden I start feeling hungry. So it's sort of antithetical, but it is unfortunately how the appetite system works. That's why, as Jason Fung said the other day on his podcast, that's why they call them appetizers, a little bit of food just to get your body thinking, oh, there's a meal coming, and then all of a sudden you get hungry.
And it makes sense that a fast may start with a burst of exercise from an evolutionary point of view, because what does caveman do when there's no food around? He gets up and goes hunting.
Goes hunt some down, yeah. And in fact, that's why your body is, during a fast, your body is increasing your alertness and your human growth hormone and your adrenaline, and it's basically getting you up to hunting speed.
Right. So that may be why it's difficult for people when they start fasting to get through those first couple of days. You need to burn off your glycogen. You need to burn off your liver glycogen, and you need to burn off glycogen that's in your muscles. And the only way you can do the latter is by exercising. Is that right?
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
And that certainly helps. The other trick that I have is that I like to start my fast after dinner. So I'll have a dinner, and then I'll begin the clock, and then the point where I hit 24 hours, it's just before bedtime. And so if you, sometimes it's like 3 or 4 hours before bedtime, because I go to sleep late. But I find that if I'm hungry and bedtime is coming up, I can decide, I'll just go to bed early. And if I sleep through it, I'll wake up and I'm not hungry, and I'll go for half the day, and all of a sudden I'm 36 hours into my fast, and now I'm on the downhill side of it. So that's one technique, is actually sleeping through the hunger bit.
Right. And if, for me, I would have to eat breakfast around 8, 9 o'clock and make that my last meal. Then when I go to sleep, 18 hours, which is typically, 18 to 24 hours is typically where it starts to get hard, then I'd be asleep for that.
Right. One thing worth mentioning is that it's remarkable that even when we're eating ad libitum, so we're eating, as you say, you like eating and you've been enjoying your food, you haven't put on all of that weight again.
True.
That's the interesting thing.
Yeah.
We should celebrate the fact that we are eating when we're hungry and stopping when we're full, and we're not putting on all of that weight again. So, it's remarkable.
It is remarkable. So you got a piece of mail, Richard?
I do. I've actually got a direct message that came to me. It's from Mel, and Mel sent me a PDF, which I'll include in the show notes. But this is the top 10 research priorities for type 2 diabetes. And these are results from the Diabetes UK James Lind Alliance Priority Setting Partnership. So these are the 10 top priorities for the peak body for diabetes in the United Kingdom.
Okay.
And their first most highest priority is, can type 2 diabetes be cured or reversed? What is the best way to achieve this? And is there a point beyond which the condition cannot be reversed? So that's remarkable that's an interesting question, And then the second is that, how do we identify people at high risk of type 2 diabetes and help to prevent the condition from developing?
Yeah.
And that's another good question, because, we know the Kraft test is going to identify people sort of 10, 15 years before they become type 2 diabetic. And that information is out there. So, there's a couple of other interesting ones. Number 5 is, how can people with type 2 diabetes be supported to make lifestyle changes to help them to manage their condition, and how effective are these lifestyle changes, and what stops those from working? Well, that's really what the Ketogenic Forum is all about, is providing support for people to make lifestyle changes to help them manage their type 2 diabetes. And, we have thousands of people reversing their type 2 diabetes. So they're asking the right questions. They're just not paying attention. Well, the answers will come to them. I mean, if they ask the questions of enough people, there are certainly experts in the United Kingdom who are part of the system, like Dr. David Unwin, who is reversing diabetes, and he is a general practitioner.
Yep.
And the final one that was interesting, this is their number 10 priority, and that is, what role do fats, carbohydrates and proteins have in the management of type 2 diabetes? And are there risks and benefits associated with the particular approaches?
Wow. These are all well-informed questions.
Absolutely. Well, we know that a ketogenic diet, a diet where you get most of your energy from fat, is definitely able to reverse at least reverse my diabetes, and I think it's done yours, and
a lot of other people we know.
Yeah, thousands of us on the ketogenic forum. And the other thing is that a diet low in fat and very high in carbohydrate, otherwise known as the Kempner rice diet, that was also able to reverse type 2 diabetes. So there's at both ends of the spectrum, there are answers to that question. So it's very exciting that the peak bodies are getting into this.
It is very exciting. Totally agree.
So that's my mail.
Well, a very happy Thanksgiving to all of you. And as Richard and I said, this is going to be such a great show because we're going to talk about what we're thankful for. But our old friend Brenda Zorn is here. Hi, Brenda.
Hi, Carl.
And her new boyfriend, the love of her life, Kevin Mountain, is here. Hi, Kevin.
Hello?
Hello.
Welcome to Two Keto Dudes.
Technology, it's wonderful. Through the miracle of modern technology and some hacking and tweaking, we are all able to be here together. It's just so nice. Brenda?
Yes?
Catch us up on your life since we last spoke.
Oh, yeah. We last spoke on the Scary Heart Stories podcast, didn't we?
That's right.
Well, I was dating Kevin then. But, yeah, I met Kevin this summer through my motorcycle gang friends.
Yeah?
I like to call them my motorcycle gang. But, yeah, some friends that rode bikes, and he was friends of theirs.
Yeah.
We, I don't know, knew we liked each other right away, started to get to know each other.
But Kevin has made some remarkable changes in his life thanks to you. So tell us what happened.
Well, okay, so this wonderful, beautiful man that I fall in love with has type 2 diabetes, which I didn't know that part. And beyond that, he's on dialysis also because of the complications of it. And of course, you know, we're spending a lot of time together. He's watching me coach people online. I have a lot of people that contact me through Facebook and things and ask me questions about how to do keto and fasting and the forum. And, you know, he's watching what I'm doing, and he just decided on his own that he's going to start eating low carb.
Wow. Kevin.
Yes.
Did you know Brenda was like a diabetes rock star when you met her?
Not when I met her, no.
How amazing is that? Wow.
Yeah.
She didn't give you one of her business cards?
Not right away.
No.
Took a while.
Don't want to scare him off, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So how did that just come up in conversation? Because that's a kind of a, you know, personal thing. Wow, I've got diabetes and I'm on dialysis. I mean, Kevin, that takes a lot of chutzpah to sort of talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you first told me that you were on dialysis, Kevin?
Oh my.
We were sitting in front of Monka Beans, and you showed me your arm where they do the...
Right. Where they hook me up. Yes.
Yeah.
How often does that happen?
3 times a week.
Oh, gee.
Wow.
Yeah. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. For 4 hours each day.
Wow. And, all right. Well, continue with the story, Brenda. So he told you he had type 2 diabetes and you were on dialysis and he started, was he listening to Two Keto Dudes or was he just watching videos or?
He was watching what I post on my personal Facebook page.
Yeah.
But also I encouraged him to read my story that was published on Diet Doctor and Dr. Fung's IDM site. And I also encouraged him to listen to podcast number 21, which has my story. And he did those things. Yeah.
Oh, good.
And his daughter did too. His daughter got pretty emotional reading my story. But,
Wow.
Right. So there was a lot going on at the time, but he actually started moving towards low carb without me even really knowing he was doing that. And he started asking me questions. And then that's when I realized he's trying to do this. And he would ask me different questions about foods and things like that. And before I knew it, he was starting to get off of his insulin, which he took quite a bit of insulin.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, Kevin, how much insulin were you taking?
A lot. At bedtime, I was taking Lantus.
Yeah.
Maybe 70 units of Lantus at bedtime.
Wow.
Wow, that's a lot.
And then I took Novolog every time I ate something, and that was at least 15 to 16 units of Novolog prior to eating every meal.
And did you have to calculate based on the meal that you were eating how much Novolog you'd have to take?
Yes. So it was called a sliding scale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Did any doctor ever talk to you about diet ever?
No.
Really?
All they did was prescribe me medicine. Take this and do that. Yeah.
And so how long have you been on a low-carb diet, and what's been the result?
Huh.
What was it now? 7 or 8 weeks now?
It's
Brenda?
7 weeks, yeah. It's amazing.
Yep.
He's a fucking badass. Tell him what's happened to you, Kevin. He's
Oh, not much. Just,
yeah.
Lost 25, 26 pounds, down
Nice.
pants size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was your A1C before and now?
Now it's last one that was taken was 7.4, I believe.
Okay.
Right.
But the worst it's been is almost 12.
Wow.
we haven't had one since he's been low carb, and we're going to actually request one next week because
Right.
we're curious what's happened. He's off all his insulin too. Did you mention that, Kevin?
Whoa.
No, I haven't been on insulin for 7 weeks now.
Yeah, he was off all his insulin within like a week. We were checking blood sugar to make sure he's okay.
And so what's that done to his blood sugar? I mean, what were you testing before you went low carb, and what are you now testing?
Oh, I was over 200s.
Wow.
Now I'm between 100 and 150.
Nice.
Wow, that's great. Well done.
He's had like a 104 reading, and a was it 104 or 118 and
115. Yep.
yeah.
So, Kevin, diabetes is sort of a vascular disease, and it affects the microvascular function of the body, which means, at the extremities, those things tend to go numb, feet go numb. There's a neuropathy that happens. Has there been any change in that? Did you have that before, and do you still?
Yeah, it is slightly getting better. When I touch the bottom of my feet, I could feel that now.
You couldn't feel them before?
No.
Wow.
I know, just after 7 weeks. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Brenda, you also had that problem.
Yes, I had neuropathy in my right foot. It was a very large spot, actually, and it made me very sad because I figured that was permanent damage for the rest of my life.
Right.
And it started to get better, and I had read something Dr. Kraft had wrote that it takes about 3 years for that to heal if you stay low carb. So I mentioned that to Gary Fettke in Breckenridge when he was at dinner with us. And that's him. I put that in my story. But anyway, and then Gary said, well, you know how long it takes for the nerves to grow from the spine to the foot? He said 3 years, and it had been just a little over 3 years. So yeah, that's completely, my foot's normal now.
So your nerves grow back.
Yes.
What you're
They
saying.
do.
Well, that's what Dr. Fettke and Dr. Kraft said.
Yeah, Dr. Fettke says it's 1 millimeter per day. And
No
so that
kidding.
your nerves will grow. And
Wow.
so, over the period of, 3 years, you can grow that full meter from your spine to your tips of your toes. Yeah.
That is amazing.
Patience, though, right? I mean, 3 years.
Calm kid on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Kevin, a lot of opponents of the low-carb movement say the ketogenic diet is too hard to stick to. So what was your experience? Did you have any problems?
I had no problems whatsoever.
He loves bacon and eggs, and he loves my fatty keto cooking.
I've been seeing what you guys have been posting on Facebook, like 2 or 3 times a day, what you guys are eating, and I'm just salivating over it.
Yeah, he did his first official fast last week, and I rewarded him with his first ever Fathead pizza, and he liked it. He yeah.
Nice. It's better than real pizza, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You liked that, didn't you, Kevin? That pizza?
No, I didn't like it. I loved it.
See?
So let's see. Pizza, bacon and eggs, steaks, and
Alfredo
you even
sauce.
made you even made like a shirataki and Alfredo thing, and man, what's not to like?
Yeah, how long do you reckon it's going to take you to get bored of this lifestyle?
I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So the other thing that's interesting, Kevin, is that you're Native American, right?
Yes, I am.
Which tribe?
I am Ojibwe.
Mm-hmm.
And I am a member of the Leech Lake Reservation, northern Minnesota.
Right. And your people, I mean, they go from pretty much up in Canada all the way down into the lakes area, and it's quite a large area, right?
Yes, it is. Right.
So I guess certainly up in Canada there'd be harsh winters, and so there'd be a good reason for you to need to be able to pack on body weight sort of at the end of summer for a long winter.
Right.
Harsh winters in Minnesota, too.
Well, yeah, that too. Yeah. I was looking at some Pima Indian studies, and the Pima have been one of the most studied peoples in Native American peoples. They had a longitudinal study where they're watching people as they go through all the stages of life, and Pima Indians, they're from Arizona, I believe. They're 19 times more likely to have diabetes than somebody from Rochester, Minnesota.
Wow.
Which is one study that I was looking at, which is incredible. Incidence of diabetes in amongst the Native American population.
There is a larger prevalence of diabetes among Native Americans in general, isn't there, Richard, than European descendants?
Yes. Well, that's what I mean. The Pima are the world record holders in this. And in fact, a lot of Aboriginal cultures, Australian Aboriginals, for example, their rates are 3.5 times the rate of non-Aboriginal Australians.
Yeah.
39% of Aboriginal Australians over 55 have type 2 diabetes. So
wow.
And that's diagnosed, and we know that for every person that's diagnosed, there's a couple of people who have undiagnosed diabetes, and so that's just incredible.
And this all has to do with genetics, guys, right? I mean, this is all genetics. This is just
Well, I think it's both, and Richard can correct me, but my opinion is that you have people who have been used to eating and hunting without carbohydrates for thousands and thousands of years, right?
right.
Yeah, or they have them seasonally.
Yeah, from fruits.
Yeah, and at the end of summer, you have your ripe fruits. You don't have ripe fruits for 365 days of the year.
Right, and then, the white man comes in, slaughters their food supply, the buffalo, and, modernizes them, quote unquote, to, here's your refined carbohydrates, here's your sugar, learn to blend into society. And the result is disastrous. So, we have the genetic predisposition just because of what their bodies have evolved to tolerate. And then on top of that, you introduce in the course of, 30 or 40 years, just one generation, all of this crappy food. Yeah.
Yeah.
So on that note, that brought the conversation to a screeching halt. I'm sorry.
No, that was good. That was yeah, that's what I wanted you to say that too.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, what's your feeling about diabetes in your community? Is there a lot of diabetes amongst your family and friends?
Well, I was adopted at 16 months old by a white couple, but yeah, I met my birth family in 2004, and my birth mother had severe diabetes, and she was on dialysis.
Oh.
My birth father, he was not a diabetic. He was pretty healthy, fairly good health.
Yeah.
And I found my younger sister is not diabetic, but my older sister is, and one of my brothers is a diabetic too.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's of 6 members of your close family, 4 are all type 2 diabetic.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
And his daughter.
And how about the next generation? Yeah. How about your kids and your nieces and nephews?
No, not too much. My nieces and nephews, they're pretty healthy right now, but my children, I have 2 children, and my son is not diabetic, but my daughter is now.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah, this is a real opportunity, I think, for Native Australians and Native Americans. I think one of the interesting things about specifically Native Australians is people say, well, we don't really know what the traditional diets were, but the last Australians to walk out of the Paleolithic era did so in 1986. And so we can actually ask them, if we have anthropologists who are on their game, we can actually go to these people and ask them. When you ask Aboriginals, most of the animals in Australia are fairly lean. Kangaroo is a very lean meat. But if you ask these people what they ate, what their preferences were, they'd throw away a lot of the kangaroo meat and they'd take the tail because the tail of the kangaroo had all the fat in it.
Mm.
That was the prime meat, the tail. The hunters got the best meat, they got the tail. And then the brain was another fatty part, and that was given to babies to wean on. But also the hunters got all of the brain. And so all of the fatty parts of the meat were all really quite prized for the Australian Aboriginals. And I'm curious, do you know much about your traditional foods?
No, I don't.
That's a shame.
It is a real shame. Yeah. And something that is definitely worth looking up and researching.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of our agenda items over the next year for Carl and I to work more with some Aboriginal Australians and some Native American Indians and work on maybe highlighting some of these issues, because it would be very interesting to know what the different dietary patterns were, and whether we can actually get that information now. Sort of like 200 years since we had the opportunity of knowing this information. So,
and also to take some of the modern fare that you're used to eating, such as fry bread and these kinds of things, and turn them into ketogenic versions. And speaking of fry bread, you guys did this just last night, right?
Yes. I'm still full. Okay.
So what is fry bread traditionally?
Fry bread is just basically flour and water mixed together, and really it's all bread,
Yeah, and fried in a pan of oil?
Deep fried, yep.
Deep fried. And so there isn't any leavening agent? There's no baking soda or any baking powder?
Yeah, there was baking powder. I looked at some of the recipes that were online for traditional fry bread, and then most fry in Crisco.
So it's kind of just like a fried dough.
Yes.
Like you'd get at a carnival.
Yep,
so
correct.
All sorts of healthy there.
Yeah.
So tell me how you keto-fied it.
Right, because usually you chop up lettuce, tomato, put things on top of it.
Right, for an Indian taco. Yeah, he did that. He's the one that we were eating the Fathead pizza, and Kevin looked up and he said, we could use this dough to make fry bread. So it was totally his idea. I modified the Fathead pizza dough recipe, and he said that he would like to make Indian tacos, which I'd never heard of. It's basically it's basically the taco meat and lettuce and onion and salsa and sour cream on top of a piece of fry bread. But Kevin, they also eat it in a sweet way too, don't they? The fry bread?
Yes.
What did they put on there?
Like jelly and jam.
So I bought some sugar-free jam that's really good, and we're going to do that next time. Yeah. butter and jelly, and there's like 4 different flavors that they offer here, and he wanted blackberry, so we got a jar of that in the fridge, and we'll be making this fry bread again. But we modified the Fathead pizza dough recipe a few ways, and I had some trial and error a day or two ago putting the dough in my deep fryer. That did not work.
So what happened?
Well, okay, Fathead dough is made of cream cheese, mozzarella shredded, and almond flour, and like maybe an egg, a few other things. And I tried with different size pieces, different thicknesses, different temperatures, and it basically starts to disintegrate. It was, I would take it out before it totally melted, and it was all had this all wonderful crispy stuff on the outside, but it was doughy in the middle, so that wasn't working. So I thought, okay, this has got to work. I've got to figure this out. And I thought, what if I baked it for a little while first and then deep fried it?
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that worked.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I deep fried it in beef tallow, since we want to stay away from seed oils. Pork lard, beef tallow, those are the best things to deep fry in. And we had she showed me how to build the taco last night. Right, Kevin? What's the order of the stuff on the taco? He's got a special order he stacks it in.
Yeah, the hamburger first.
Yeah.
Lettuce, onion, salsa, cream, or what was it? Sour cream, or what?
Yeah, and shredded cheese too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, shredded. You're right. Yep.
We couldn't finish it. It was so rich. So
Kevin, how did it compare with the traditional fry bread?
I thought it was just as good, if not better. I love it.
That's so cool.
anything deep fried, right?
Yeah, right.
Hey,
yeah.
we all like deep fried food. Ain't nothing wrong with deep frying.
So, Kevin, are you prepared to be an agent of change for your family and friends?
Oh, definitely. My daughter's slowly converting over to keto. Yep.
Oh, so great to hear.
I'm not surprised with your example. I mean, look at what you've managed to do. You've managed to go off all your insulin. You've managed to bring your blood glucose down into normal ranges.
Get feeling back in your feet.
Yeah.
And his weight loss, which people are starting to notice, he's got that thing going on where his face is looking very different. And if he couldn't have gotten any more handsomer, Kevin, he's even more so now. So, yeah.
Well, we're going to revisit you from time to time, Kevin, and at least talk about you on the show. I hope you're prepared for that. But Brenda, you have some news to share, don't you?
Oh, do you want me to talk about my new job and who I'm going to be working for? Megan Ramos and Dr. Jason Fung approached me, which I'm so honored, and asked me if I would join their counseling team at the IDM program.
Yay!
So,
Hey, well done.
Wow.
Well done.
So
we even have a little clip from Megan congratulating you on that, which we'll play now.
And another thing that I'm really thankful for is now I'm going to be working with another one of my really good friends, Brenda Zorn. So Brenda Zorn has been a longtime friend of Jason Fung and myself. And she's been a long time follower of the IDM program. And we're super happy to have Brenda on board. So that's something I'm very much looking forward to.
Wow. So congratulations. That's amazing. So
Thank
what
you.
does that entail, actually?
Well, right now, I'm doing a lot of training, a lot of reading and training seminars that I'm listening to. I need to go through a whole process. Also, I'm shadowing her in her consultation sessions that she does live. So there'll be quite a bit of that until they feel I'm ready to take on clients. But she does know my history and knows that basically I've been doing this for almost 4 years already with people that just approach me online or friends and family.
Yeah.
But there are people I've mentored.
You've been doing it for free. For people all over the world, yeah.
Anybody who asks, I help. Oh no, this is going to have a bunch of people get a hold of me. But my time is extremely limited now because I have my regular full-time job. I work as a home health aide and now this training. But I would love to do this kind of work full-time. And I told Megan she can have me 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 if she wants me, because I love this. I love to help people. It's amazing to change people's lives. I've never done anything so rewarding.
Well, and you do it as a home health aide in a limited capacity to a limited number of people. But now you're talking about really scaling up, which is amazing.
Megan was saying that, I don't remember her exact words, that the IDM, Intensive Dietary Management Clinic up in Toronto is the largest research clinic in North America. Does that sound right? She said something like that. It's the largest something in North America. It sounded pretty impressive. Wow. I'm not sure what she told me now, but.
Well, I do know this, that after the Obesity Code podcast started publishing, they became inundated with new clients.
Right. They need help.
They're in over their head.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm willing to work real hard for them. So, I can't tell you how thrilled I am that they asked me. I've met both of them before and, they've been watching some of my antics online, I suppose. And of course, Dr. Fung, published my story. They have a pretty good idea that, I have been helping people and that I've been doing this for a while. So they said that they both love me. Well,
who doesn't?
I love them too. Yeah, they're my people. So I'm really enjoying this and I'm very, very excited. Yep.
One thing people don't know about Brenda, if your only experience of her is like in Facebook, she tends to be very opinionated and use a lot of foul language. And we love that about her. But, one-on-one, when you meet her in person, she's like the sweetest, most kind-hearted person that we've ever met. So I just need to say that.
Yeah, I like her that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but don't push me in a corner, okay?
She'll come out fighting.
She really doesn't take herself too seriously, but, when challenged, though, watch out.
Exactly. The F words start flying. No, yeah, sometimes people might get a little put off by my strong personality online, but really, I'm a completely harmless person.
Well, and you're
and
effective,
I love people.
though.
And
that's good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And,
there are thousands of people whose lives have been changed by your advice, by your example. Right. And so it's been a wonderful thing to watch, for us.
And if you can give women out there the courage to speak their minds and not kowtow to popular opinion, I think that's the most important part of what you do. I really do think that's amazing. We need more women like you.
Oh, gosh, Carl, thank you. Yeah. I definitely... at every opportunity, empower women around other things too, like taking care of their own car and things like that. I like to do that kind of thing. So
the art of motorcycle maintenance. Well, we have a lot to be thankful for this year, don't we? We all do. I guess, we've talked to Brenda about her new career and certainly Kevin about his new life, and that's fantastic. I am also grateful this year for so many things, for the opportunity to expand the message, through new podcasts and things like that. I think is pretty much the biggest change that has happened to me this year, and with Richard as well. Also, I'm just grateful for to Richard for the ketogenic diet and showing me that I actually could do it. I remember how hard it was at first and how I thought, is this going to work? Is this not going to work? As my body was changing. And then once it changed, probably after about 5 months, I felt like I'm never going back to carbohydrates and I never will. So I'm grateful for finding this way of life, which I'm now calling the keto-fasting lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's not just so much a ketogenic lifestyle, even though fasting is ketogenic, but certainly keto food and fasting is...
We're not changing our name to the two keto fasting dudes, though.
No, we're not. No,
I'm putting my foot down there.
Definitely not. But the keto fasting lifestyle has changed my life, and I'm never going back to the standard American diet, and for that, I'm very, very thankful.
Yeah, I as the token Australian here, we don't celebrate Thanksgiving in Australia, but we should. It's the best holiday we had in America. I remember our first Thanksgiving, Jules and I had moved to Florida in 1998, and we spent Thanksgiving with a Cuban-American family, and we got a whole different experience. Cuban food, as much pork as you could eat, and
awesome.
And then, like, the next day, well, sort of that evening, you're in a coma from all this food, and then you sort of
smoke a cigar,
pass out on a couch watching football, and then you wake up and you eat leftovers afterwards, and it's that we have exactly the same holiday on the day after Christmas in Australia. It's called Boxing Day, and we spoke to Dr. Peter Bruckner about this and about the fact that on Boxing Day there's a really big event in Australia, which is a cricket game. Everybody does this. So you have this big Christmas feast, and then on Boxing Day you sort of watch sport and then eat leftovers from the Christmas feast. So
and roll around in a carbohydrate-induced coma. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not necessarily. It doesn't have to be carbohydrate-induced. It's just a lot of food.
Yeah, well, I know traditionally in America, we're eating stuffing and cornbread and pie and all that stuff. That's the traditional Thanksgiving fare. But, as we found out last year when we did the Thanksgiving show, you can keto-fy Thanksgiving and really, really rock it. So that's what we're thankful for. Brenda, is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you are thankful for?
Well, there's a lot of things. Life is really good right now. I'm very healthy. I'm feeling really good. I've had all kinds of fantastic things happen this year for me. My health is it's still improving, which just blows my mind. My lean body mass is still growing. I check it with DEXA scans. I'm lifting weights.
A lot of weights.
Yeah, I love it. And how strong I am is kind of strange, but it feels good, and I know it's good for me. I think I've probably got more out of helping people recover in the keto and fasting community than anything else this year. It just means a lot to me, and I spend an enormous amount of time doing it every day, and I have for, more than a few years now. But I've got to say that meeting Kevin is just a major highlight.
Yeah.
I'm very, very grateful and thankful I met him. I mean, sometimes you just meet people by chance. And what were the chances that, I met him. I love who he is. And then it turns out I can actually help him with something, which that wasn't even the original plan. Heck, I didn't even know he had these things going on. So, so it's been very rewarding for me, but he's my soulmate. He's my friend. He's just an amazing person. He has a quiet strength about him. One of the funny things about Kevin is that he is quiet a lot of the time, and I can really be a talker and interrupt too when I get excited. And I had to learn to shut the fuck up. Just otherwise I was going to miss something that he said, because when Kevin talks, I don't want to miss anything he says, because it's more infrequent. And so I'm learning, he's making me a better listener, because I'm learning to just stop talking and listening to what he has to say. So, yeah.
And Kevin, you guys have a lot in common, don't you? You both ride motorcycles, and do you lift weights too, Kevin?
I used to, but not anymore, but I'd like to get back into that.
Yeah.
How cool is that? So do you have a list of things you're thankful for, Kevin?
Well, just the main thing is thankful for this keto diet that I'm on, and thankful for having Brenda in my life now. Yep. Those are the two main ones.
Yeah, there's a whole novel in those words that you just said there. Yeah. Well, and how appropriate is it for us to be sharing Thanksgiving like this, white Europeans and Native Americans, which is essentially the makeup of the very first Thanksgiving.
Hey, Kevin, you got some good jokes. You want to tell him the donkey joke with the
yes, the donkey joke.
I don't know if it's appropriate for the podcast, but Carl will edit it out if he doesn't think so. But you should still tell him.
Go ahead, lay it on us.
Yeah, it's back in the day when the Pilgrims met the Indians for their first Thanksgiving. Yeah, they said, good thing we're having a turkey instead of a donkey. Well, I guess if we was having a donkey, everybody would have having a piece of ass on Thanksgiving. Yeah.
You pass the ass, please.
Yeah.
Put some gravy on it.
So tell me about Thanksgiving as an Australian. I've had a brief experience when we lived in America, but a lot of our listeners are Australians and from all over the world. Tell us the origination of Thanksgiving.
Well, the idea was that these people called the Pilgrims certainly weren't the first settlers to come to America, but they escaped religious persecution and came from the European mainland. I think it was they were Dutch, and were escaping religious persecution. They were Puritans, so they were strict fundamentalist Bible followers, and guess what? People didn't like them, so they got on a boat called the Mayflower. Now this is documented. They came across the Atlantic from Europe, and they landed in Plymouth, Massachusetts. And there's a famous rock there called Plymouth Rock. Now, if you read historians like Bill Bryson, you find out that they actually didn't land at Plymouth Rock. It was a little further down, but some of this has been mythologized. But the story is that they were starving and they didn't know how to feed themselves. So one of the Patuxet Native North American people who was very famous and famously participated in this first feast and actually helped the Europeans learn how to feed themselves. His name was Squanto. His actual name was Tisquantum. Mm-hmm. And he, believe it or not, he wasn't just some guy who happened to, understand them or whatever. He had been around for a while, and he was hired as an indentured servant, I believe, in Europe by some royalty a couple of times. So he had been back and forth to Europe a few times. I believe Captain John Smith was the guy who brought him to Europe the first time. But don't quote me on that. Anyway, so he was kind of hip. He kind of knew how to teach, European settlers how to grow corn and, what to hunt for and all of this stuff. So that went on, and they had this Thanksgiving dinner between the Native Americans of the region and the settlers after they had a harvest, successful harvest, and were able to have this feast. The lore is that they had a turkey, but it was probably some other kind of fowl. But, these, like I say, these things get mythologized.
Maybe it was a donkey. No.
Pass the ass.
Yeah. So that's the sort of lore that we've been taught. And, the traditional fare is a roast turkey, mashed potatoes, a stuffing or a dressing, which is usually made with, herbed bread and celery and carrots and onions. And some people put sausage, some people put hazelnuts, some people put chestnuts in their stuffing, whatever. It's just some kind of dressing. And then like the fall vegetables like squashes and sweet potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, it got, commercialized with the green bean casserole and all of these things and pumpkin pie and apple pie and all of this stuff. So, so Thanksgiving poses a pretty difficult situation for anybody who is trying to diet, right? Because there's this big cultural pressure for us to get together and just eat until we are just stuffed. And generally it's not good stuff. So
yeah.
Most of it's carby.
Yeah, most of it's carby, right. And so the traditional experience in America is to eat yourself silly and then sit around and watch the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade or, the football games, just like you guys do on Boxing Day, and just, roll around in a coma, This is the traditional experience. So it does pose a kind of a challenge for those of us who are either fasting or eating ketogenic, especially if you have, most families today there's some vegans, there's some vegetarians, there's some carnivores, fewer of those. There are people who are doing low carb. There are people who are doing paleo. There are people doing keto. And then there's people who are fasting.
Yeah. You can't fast on Thanksgiving though, can you?
Well, sure. I guess you could. But what my point is, it makes for really interesting family dynamic time. And so stress levels generally go up when we have these family gatherings and get-togethers and all the generations and all the people get together. It takes a lot of cool heads to sail through these holidays without getting stressed out.
Yes, it does. I've had this stress with my family, but they're slowly moving towards low-carb foods at Thanksgiving. Yep.
Yeah, it can be just as delicious. And I guess that brings us to a very special edition of Recipes! We want to know your recipes, guys. What are your Thanksgiving recipes?
Well, I wrote down what I experimented with the fry bed last night, so I guess I'll read that. But also I have a stuffing recipe. So my stuffing recipe is almost no carbs at all because the main ingredient is... Oh, wait. First, I should say that I made this last night, and Kevin and I finished off the whole dish, the whole casserole. He ate half of it. I ate the other half. But he never asked me how I made it. Kevin, the main ingredient of this
Okay.
this zero carb, basically almost zero carb stuffing is crushed pork rinds.
Woo!
Oh, really?
Yeah, see, Kevin doesn't really like pork rinds, but they have a different taste when they're plain. So what I did is I took about a 3.5 ounce bag of plain salted pork rinds and broke them up into little pieces about the size of maybe a postage stamp size. And that was about 5 cups is what it came out to be. A little bit bigger pieces, not crushed really, but a little bit bigger pieces, try to resemble bread cubes as much as I could.
Right.
Then I melted a stick of butter and threw in a half of a large diced Vidalia onion and 2 sticks of celery. That's all diced really, really well, and sauteed that in that stick of butter till it got really soft. And then I mixed in 2 tablespoons of rubbed sage, a 1/4 teaspoon of white pepper, and poured that over the pork rinds, mixed it up, and baked it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and
Nice.
I baked it at 350 about 15 minutes, just enough to heat it up. If you bake it too long, it'll get too soft. And very, very simple, but I got to tell you, Kevin, what did you think of the stuffing last night?
I loved it.
So,
Absolutely loved it.
yeah.
Wow.
He might not have loved it as much as if he knew I made it with pork rinds. So, but
Right.
He waited till now to spring it on
I
it.
did.
So he's got to say, oh, yeah, I loved it.
yeah, but I mean, think about how low carb that
The
is.
pork rinds.
Yeah. Think about that. There's a couple carbs in the celery and a couple in the onion, but think about how low carb that whole dish is.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right.
It's just amazing. And it tasted really, really good. So that's a stuffing recipe that would work. You could stuff that in a bird. You can, we baked it and just ate it out of a dish. So
Yeah.
whatever. It held up like stuffing. I suppose you could maybe add a little bit of chicken broth to change the texture or the flavor a little bit. I didn't have any, but it was good the way it was. So.
And what's great about pork rinds is they soak up a lot of liquid, right? They do. They're very dry when you eat them, out of the bag.
Right.
And they can have this effect of drying out your mouth. But
right.
yeah,
and
you
it was,
put in a little liquid.
Right. It was mostly butter. The liquid really was butter, which is, so it didn't make them mushy because it was
Right.
oil that I was putting on there. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure if adding any chicken broth would work in this case, but doing it the way I did worked. So
Yeah. Okay.
Well, there's an experiment waiting to happen.
yeah, exactly. I'm sure Kevin would be a willing guinea pig, right, Kevin?
You bet.
Let's see.
Kevin, do you have any recipes of your own you want to add? Or are we just going to let Brenda?
Yeah, to let her. Yep.
Yeah, the fry
Okay.
bread is his thing, and he's the one that told me how to do this. But I wrote down the final ingredients, and I'll explain the method because this one there's a special
Okay.
trick to this. Kevin had the idea for the fry bread because of that fathead pizza dough, and I thought, wow, that would be really neat to see if I could recreate that. And of course, I want to do it for him because that was something he really liked, and.
Right.
Yeah. So I took the standard fathead recipe that's online
Right.
at the
Right.
and then I added about 1/3 of a cup more almond flour than the recipe called for. First, I should say I doubled the recipe. I added 1/3 a cup more almond flour. I only used 1 egg instead of 2, because if it's a doubled recipe, it would have been 2. I only used 1 egg. And then I added a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder.
Okay.
Mix that really well.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, because I wanted it to rise, because if you look at traditional flatbread,
Yeah.
it really puffs up. So then
Sure.
I knew it wasn't going to rise like wheat dough. So I shaped it into flattened rounds, almost resembling a finished fry bread, and put it on parchment paper. And I baked those at 350 until they were lightly browned, and then flipped them over and browned the other side. But just lightly browned, because I didn't want to fully cook it, because I'm going to deep fry these suckers. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, fry bread is fry bread. It needs to go in.
Yeah.
It needs to be
deep
fried. So, so they were still a little soft, but probably not dough in the middle, or maybe a little. And I was able to pick them up. And I brought the oil to 325 beef tallow, and slipped that fry bread in there. And you got to stand right there with it, because we're not. This is not wheat flour. This is cheese and almond flour, and there's already a lot of fat in this piece of bread. So you need to be standing right there because it'll brown up really fast. And then flip it over, brown the other side. It'll puff up a little bit like fry bread should.
And you're talking like seconds, right?
Yeah, not even a minute. You got to be standing right there. It browns up quick. And then set it on paper towels to drain a little bit.
So you didn't use fry baskets with your deep fryer?
No,
you took those
actually,
out?
These were big, and my deep fryer is small. And the fry basket.
You just put them right in.
Yeah, when I tried to experiment with this before, putting smaller pieces of this in the fry basket, that did not work. So what I did is I used a large cast iron pan. They call it chicken fryer. And that's what I filled with beef tallow. And that was on my gas stove top. I had better control that way. I deep fried this in a...
It's like a Dutch oven?
No, it's a very large, deep cast iron frying pan. They called it a chicken fryer. Oh. Yeah. And that's what I fried these in. And that would probably work best, to just not set them in a basket, but slip them into the oil that way like traditional fry bread is done. Yeah. It was so good. We couldn't finish them, though. They were too big and rich. Neither of us could finish our dinner. So
I'm going to try that. I'm definitely going to try it.
It was so good. That deep fried, crispy on the outside, bready inside. Yeah, it was so good. Yeah. And then you can make Indian tacos with these, of course. Fry bread or the savory version, or the savory version or the sweet version.
I imagine since they were crispy, you could cut them up and use them as crackers, right?
No, these are thick. They're actually, fry bread is traditionally pretty thick. So I'd say when it was done, it was at least a 1/4 inch thick, if not a little bit more. And around the edges, even thicker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
Well, I'll go next. The only thing that I'm doing is revamping my stuffing recipe from last year.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll put a link to this. It's basically on our blog. All right. So first, when I wrote this recipe, I used Mahler's low-carb bread. Remember, I was on a Mahler's kick for a long time?
I remember that.
I remember.
Yeah.
Right, but that still has wheat, and, wheat has problems. It's problematic. It was problematic for me, even though I was only eating it once in a while. But since then, I've switched to using a non-wheat bread from Fox Hill Kitchens.
Oh, I love that stuff.
Oh, yeah, Julie bread.
Yeah, we call it Julie bread because Julie is the woman who started Fox Hill Kitchens in Vermont, and she came down to visit me before Keto Fest and gave me some of her bagels and buns and stuff, and I thought they were so amazing. We had her come make grilled cheese sandwiches at Keto Fest.
Oh, God, they were so good.
Right. Now, you can go to bread.2keto.com. That'll bring you to Fox Hill Kitchens, but it also helps support our podcast because we have an affiliate program with her, okay?
That's true.
Yeah. So she has a bunch of products at Fox Hill Kitchens, but the ones that I'm using are the croutons.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she gave them away in the Keto Fest bags.
That's right. The croutons are actually, they already are salted. They're crispy. They have some garlic powder on them. You can eat them like snack, like
That's
crackers.
What I did.
They're just, you could put them in soup, and they're just amazing. So they're perfect for stuffing because they're already dry and they're already mashed up into croutons. And they're already broken up into croutons.
And they're seasoned. Yeah. They're good.
Yeah. So you start with the mirepoix, which, as Brenda said, chopped celery, carrots, mushrooms, garlic, onion, whatever you like. And I'm going to add to that some crumbled sage sausage.
Oh, yeah.
And I get this sage sausage at the grocery store. It's Jimmy Dean sage sausage.
We'll have to buy that, Kevin.
Yes.
And I add some chopped fresh herbs, mostly sage with some thyme and rosemary. And at the end, I throw in a few sliced black olives. And Kelly, my wife, doesn't eat onions, so I use onion powder to get the onion flavor, and she can tolerate that. Mm-hmm. And then you add some chicken stock. So if you make it yourself from bone broth, which I do, that's the best, obviously. But if you buy it, get the low sodium stock. Or if you make it yourself, don't use salt because you want to be able to control the salt yourself.
Sure.
So then you pour the hot stock and mirepoix mix over the croutons and you combine it. And if it's too dry, you add a bit more stock.
Yeah.
If, you can obviously gauge what you need. So now it's time to either stuff the bird or just roast it and toast it in a baking pan, which is what I do. I like to get, more melted butter over the top, and just put it in the oven in a thin layer, because then it gets crispy.
Crispy, yeah.
It gets crispy on top. Yep. So basically the end of it is you bake it in a baking pan, a 300-degree Fahrenheit oven for 30 to 40 minutes or until it gets crispy. And that's pretty much it.
A lot of people these days don't like to put the stuffing in the bird because, there's a chance if the bird doesn't cook well, the juices are raw going into the stuffing and it's not really that edible. Stuffing is supposed to season the bird, really. So from the inside, I got to admit, I just throw a lemon inside the bird just to keep it expanded, and that'll do it. Most people these days just bake their stuffing in a pan in the oven. That way you can eat the stuffing, because you put so much effort into making the stuffing taste nice, you may as well want to eat it.
Totally agree. And that's what I do.
That's what I do now, too. I used to stuff the bird years ago, but of course that was bread stuffing. But yeah, I cook it on the side. It's better.
Awesome. So my recipe this week is going to be one I did for Thanksgiving last year, which is a low-carb almond meal polenta. It's actually Julie's recipe, but it has a twist this year. So a twist that Brenda will appreciate, because we're going to throw some baby corn into it.
But it's baby corn keto, Richard.
Baby corn is entirely
Yes, it is.
keto, because those little kernels haven't had a chance to develop all the sugars that the big kernels have. So it's just the flavor of corn without a lot of the carbs. So this recipe is it's 100 grams of almond meal, which is about 250 mils, about a cup worth. We're going to have about a cup of water or stock. I prefer to use like a homemade stock if I can. And again, as like Carl says, I don't salt my stocks. I salt the meal that I'm adding the stock to. And it's going to take 30 grams of cream cheese. And we're going to use this to bind the meal. And about 60 grams of grated Parmesan cheese. This is also a binder, but it's also a flavor enhancer. And then finally, half a teaspoon of low sodium salt to taste. And about 50 grams of baby corn. So the baby corn is just going to be for flavoring. Okay, so how you make this is you add the almond meal to a small saucepan, and you add the stock and the water, and you whisk it up, and you whisk really hard until the mixture is free of any lumps. Then you put it on the stove over a medium heat, and you whisk while it heats, and it'll blip, 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 little bubbles coming up as the mixture sort of thickens. And then when it starts to bubble at the edges, or when you stop whisking, you add the 2 cheeses and the salt, and you keep whisking, whisking for about 2 to 3 minutes until the mixture thickens. And now you're going to add the flavoring. That's going to be the baby corn. So you chop the baby corn really fine. You can use a mortar and pestle, or you can use a magic bullet, or if you've got good knife skills, just use a knife. And you chop it really fine, and you add it in. Once you've got the baby corns in there and it's started to soften, take the whole thing off the heat, and the mixture will thicken even more while it's standing. And that is a low-carb almond meal polenta.
Awesome.
I haven't had polenta for 4 years. I'm going to make that. I miss polenta.
Yeah.
So one other story that I have for Thanksgiving is that, as some of you know, especially the locals, I started a meetup group for ketogenic lifestyle. And if you are thinking of doing something like that and you want to be an influencer, this is a great way to start. Just go to meetup.com, and I think it is a paid service. You do have to pay to be a member of meetup.com. But it's also a great way to meet locals. And they'll find you. You don't have to go advertising for it. You basically just start a local meetup group for ketogenic lifestyle, and people will join. And what I decided to do was have my monthly or so meetups at a local restaurant that understands keto.
Mm-hmm.
So this has been at Hot Rods. Rod Cornish is a local guy who talked to me about keto before Keto Fest. And by the time Keto Fest came around last July, he said, you know what? I'm going to go all out, and we'll have prime rib on the menu. We'll have a cup of bacon. We'll have some shrimp skewers. We'll have all this great keto food. So his was a very popular and successful restaurant during Keto Fest. Anyway, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, coming up here, we're going to do our next meetup.
Nice.
Well, that makes me want to start one here, Carl. I mean, I could handle once a month meetup over around here.
Yeah, of course. And all you do is you just get together and have a meal and
Yes.
talk. I mean, there's no.
I can
You
do
know?
that.
What's better than that?
So I've got an interesting story about Europeans meeting native peoples, and this is about the Pima Indians. And I mentioned the Pima before. They're one of the most studied populations in North America for metabolic diseases and what have you. But what's interesting is the name Pima actually comes from, they don't call themselves the Pima Indians. They call themselves the Oatham, I believe is the pronunciation.
Okay.
Where we got the name Pima from is that apparently Pima is their language for I don't know what you're saying.
Wow.
and apparently when the Spanish first came to the area of Arizona and they'd ask these people questions, they'd say Pimac all the time. And apparently that is
I don't know what you're saying.
Really don't know what you're saying.
Hi, what's your name? Pima.
And they figured, we may as well just call you the Pimac.
So funny.
And the interesting thing now is that in Australia, the word kangaroo, there's been this urban myth running around Australia for many years that the word kangaroo is Aboriginal for I don't know what you're saying.
Isn't that funny?
Because these English explorers would say, they'd point to this funny animal jumping on its hind legs and say, what's that? And the Aboriginal man would say, I don't know what you're saying. So,
Wow, there must be a lot of that.
it must be a lot of that.
What an awesome way to wrap this up. Hey, Brenda, thank you so much for joining us and telling your story and bringing Kevin along. Thank you.
You're welcome anytime, Carl.
And Kevin, you are
Yes.
such a rock star. We're going to have to hear from you more often.
Oh, yes. Yeah, and eventually maybe have my daughter join in, too.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're going to continue this conversation on the forum. So we'll see you out there. Thanks, guys.
Okay, bye, guys.
Okay, you bet.
Of course, if you have anything that you want to tell us, something we said wrong, something that you don't agree with, or some more research that you found to support or refute anything that we've said, send it by mail to dudes@twoketodudes.com or post it on their website.
And you can follow us on Twitter at 2KetoDudes, on Instagram at 2KetoDudes, and make sure to use the hashtag 2KetoDudes.
And of course, if you want to join the free ketogenic forum, it's forum.2keto.com.
And if useless swag is your fancy, t-shirts, coffee mugs, and all that junk, head over to gear.2keto.com.
And if you want a shot at getting some of that swag for free, join the 2 Keto Dudes fan club. You'll be eligible to win something in every show. Go to fanclub.2keto.com.
And if you feel like supporting our podcasts and our forums, think about making a pledge on our Patreon page at patreon.2keto.com.
Or just hit the donate button on our website at www.2ketodudes.com. Or just go to donate.2keto.com.
You can also see all of our podcasts and other videos of all our podcasts on YouTube at youtube.2keto.com.
And if you haven't already, please leave us a review on iTunes. That's how new people get to know about what we do.
2 Keto Dudes is brought to you by 2 Keto LLC, who strives to support the low-carb community with podcasts and other publications. Well, guys, keep calm and keto on. Brenda, keep calm and keto on.
Keep calm and keto on, Carl, Richard, Kevin.
You too, Kevin. Keep calm and keto on.
Yes, thank you.
Richard,
Yep.
keep calm and keto on.
Keep calm, keto on, Carl.
And we'll see you next time on
2 Keto Dudes.